He is the ultimate opportunist, a multi-time tag team champion, a multi-time WWE and World Heavyweight champion, a two-time Money in the Bank winner, a WWE Hall of Famer, a husband, a father. He is the man, the myth, the legend, and so much more. Let's talk about it, shall we? I'm John Renton with my review of WWE on A&E Biography, WWE Legends on the Rated R Superstar Edge. That was a terrible Tony Chimmel impression. I'm sorry. But nevertheless, one of the better biographies that WWE has done in the 2 seasons that they've done. And I think there's only like Rey Mysterio and WrestleMania 1 left. So we're almost ready to wrap up this season. But Edge is so well spoken. He was able to tell his story. Yes, a lot of this stuff has been told in other documentaries. But it was nice for Edge basically to reflect on this, considering those other, biographies, documentaries, whatever, were while he was injured and while he wasn't sure if he would ever come back. And he was at peace, but not at peace with it. And just being able to see him come back after nearly 9 years on the shelf because of a career-ending neck injury, it was just really, really cool to see. And he's probably not going to be around much after next year's WrestleMania or maybe WrestleMania 40. But he's able to go out on his own terms. And he fought through injuries and just the amount of stuff that he had to go through and the heartache and the personal things. It was really, really good to hear his story, even if some of it was treading familiar ground. He was in some old school theater, looked like it was built back in the 1800s. No, Abraham Lincoln, don't go into that skybox. But anyway, being a WWE superstar, sports entertainment pal, part gypsy, part Cirque du Soleil, part athlete, all this amalgamation of things rolled into one, human centipede together and presented to you all. And that his mother raised him right, how, his mother was very influential in his life. He didn't have a dad. They grew up in Orangeville, Ontario, Canada, which I guess is just, I don't know where the fuck it is in Ontario because I don't know much about Canadian geography. Matt Copeland, his cousin, because Edge's real name is Adam Copeland, shows him around. There were sections to the city. Not necessarily ritzy parts, but there were some poor parts. And him and his mother lived paycheck to paycheck. She worked as hard as she could to make sure there's food on the table. There was even something like it was a particular child stipend. And they would always wait for that $35 because that was either food or, possibly a little bit of clothing or both. And grandparents, uncles, aunts, they helped out. Everybody helped out. They never explained why the dad wasn't around. I think he might have talked about it in other ones. I'm not really sure, and I'm not going to speculate. All I'm going to say is for his dad to ban them, fuck that guy. But the mother worked really goddamn hard. You could tell how pained Edge was talking about his mother, considering the battle that she went through later on, which I'll get to in this review. Uncle Gary was a guy that really, a family member that really, made an impression on Edge. Unfortunately, he died young, and Edge was his world was rocked because you only thought old people would die, but then suddenly he dies, and what the hell's going on here? How could this man die? Well, it hurt Edge, it hurt the family. The grandparents weren't necessarily the same because anytime you have that loss sudden, regardless, it can really jar people. It really, really can. And then we get into the wrestling talk. Maple Leaf Gardens, vivid memories, getting to see the stuff, the way the Maple Leaf Gardens setup was done, the ramp to the ring. Sometimes it looked cool, but it almost looked like a weird stage. It was like they were getting out there to perform, like Hamlet or something like that. And given how Vince made everything theatrical in that episode of South Park with Vince McMahon and wrestling and everything, Vince McMahon's vision did become more like that South Park episode. Which I'm not the biggest South Park fan, but I remember that episode. And that episode was really pretty goddamn accurate. But, they're bigger than life, all these people. And even seeing late stage Andre at that point was troubling, but he still, he was fucking larger than life. He was the 8th wonder of the world for a reason. And he was like, this is something I could do. This is something I really could do. Jay, a.k.a. Christian, got footage from him. And, they met at age 11. Jay was shy. Him and Christian pretty much bonded right away. They loved wrestling. They wanted to succeed. They wanted to team up. And then we get the story about Mania 6, where the mother didn't have a credit card, but used the grandmother and grandfather's credit card. You gotta think, this is back in 1990. Not everybody had a credit card. And it was a big fucking deal. And the Sky Dome, that was big. That was really, really fucking big. Edge was there with his glorious goddamn mullet. And I know he's a kid, but just like fucking hell, the mullets. I mean, everybody was going to change their hairstyles in the late 80s, early 90s, but they had the mullet over first. I now will wait for everybody to shut this off, so I'm talking to nobody over that bad pun. But talks about, being there with his mom and seeing, war, there were two camps. Or were you in Hogan, that doesn't work for me, brother. I hate the brother's brother, but drew a shit pot full of money and made a shit pot full of money in wrestling? Or were you in the camp of Ultimate Warrior? Queering doesn't make the world work. Flash in the pan, but big, big money for a few years. Warrior. Assume the controls. Hogan. Why he wanted to crash a plane with Hogan in it, I will never know. By the way, fuck the Ultimate Warrior. I'm glad he's dead. But that was what really set off Edge's love more than anything. And being there was a big goddamn deal. That was a big mania. That was an insane atmosphere. For better or worse, Hogan versus Warrior is a match that will be remembered. Not necessarily for work, but just for the clash, the monumental clash of these two titans that were built up really goddamn big. And Warrior flamed out as a champion, and nevertheless, but it was what it was. It was a big fucking deal and a moment in time that we can't go back to. And as a 9-year-old kid, I remember getting that VHS tape. I remember seeing the stills or seeing even clips. And getting that VHS tape, yes, I know, prehistoric. I wore out the VHS tape that the video store at the time had. And fortunately, I had a few other copies, but still, it's like, I wore out the one copy that I kept renting. And I just would keep renting. I would beg my parents basically to let me rent this stuff longer, and I would just stay up and I would watch Mania 6 and other Manias obsessively to the point where I can almost memorize some of these moves and some of these matches. But anyway, Brett talked about how it was tough to get into the training and everything. Brett mentions his own forays into wrestling. Sweet Daddy Siki and Ron Hutchinson. Sweet Daddy Siki is somebody very revered in the Canadian territory, especially for Stu Hart. Bleach blonde, African American talent. I believe even teamed with Buddy Rogers for a time. But yeah, I believe he passed away a number of years ago. But he was somebody that is very, very revered, especially in Canada. They had a school. Ed sent in a letter. And actually, Ron, I think, still had it. And it was just so fucking hilarious to see that Ron, to read that and everything, 6'4", 220, okay, let's do that. The bumps weren't easy. And he realized this is what he wanted to do. We actually get to see footage of his first match in front of a crowd. July 1st, 1993. And this is just really, really fucking cool. See, this is what I love about these biographies. Showing this old stuff. Really, really good shit. And then we were like somewhere called Monarch Park. I don't know where the hell that is. And Edge was on a talk show. Or Edge was in the crowd for a talk show. I don't remember the name of it. There's a Canadian talk show. Brett was on there in his Sergeant Pepper jacket. Just so fucking hilarious. And pulls Edge aside. Edge had asked him about, training to be a wrestler. Or, how do I get out and do that stuff? How do I get out and, get noticed? And then Edge got pulled aside by Brett. And Brett said, you got something, kid. Stick with it. And Christian was going to college. Edge decided to go to college, do some radio broadcasting. We got to hear a little bit of that audio. That was cool. And then him and Christian would just do 30-minute matches. They would just do this stuff on these indies in front of like 50 people, 100 people, 20 people, didn't matter. They were getting out there and gaining experience. And then Carl DeMarco, Brett's agent, says, I'll help you, send me a tape, stick with it, keep doing this stuff. I will try to get you a deal. And an International Wrestling Alliance, they would drive across frozen lakes. Sometimes it weren't all the way frozen. We got to see pictures of a young Rhino and I believe a young Canyon. No, it was Joey Abs. It was Joey Abs. I remember that because he was part of the Mean Street Posse for all of 5 minutes. But yeah, matches in Tennessee where they didn't get any money. They actually had to get money wired, or Edge had to get money wired to him so he'd get a bus ticket to go home because they had spent all their money with the promise of something and had gotten screwed over. The mom never questioned it. She wanted him to succeed. And it wasn't like he was begging his mom for money. She knew this was something he wanted to do. I wish we had gotten footage of the mom talking. I wish we had. I don't know if she ever appeared on camera. I don't know if they had time to do that. I wish we'd been able to hear from her how she actually felt. But it was cool to hear from Edge and talk how he talked in reverence about his mother. Brett helped train him, and they got an offer from WWE. And then things started to take off. We got the... We think it's... they did skip over him being Damon Stryker on WCW television. Sexton Hardcastle. Sexton Hardcastle. I mean, that's a great fucking name right there. And anybody that takes it will just be accused of copying Edge. His debut promos, the weird thing, he was just like goth-like and whatever, but they didn't really have a direction for him. He had gear ideas. He would draw out his own gear ideas and stuff like that. And anytime he would do it, he does it now for like anything, for returns or any of his occasional matches. He makes sure to draw it out, and it's like him going back to being a kid again, being a teenager. Nobody knew who Edge really was. Bruce Pritchard, by the way, fuck Bruce Pritchard because he's a goddamn liar and a piece of shit. But Edge just, he was upset with the corporate stuff and everything and creative. He knew what he could be, but he wasn't sure what they wanted him to be. And we get footage of the non-TV dark matches. They wanted him to be a deaf wrestler with the inability to speak. So they wanted him to be Helen Keller, which would have been just hilarious. Helen Keller as a wrestler, I mean, granted she was blind, but still, would have been hilarious to see her try to be a wrestler. But then he accidentally injured Jose Estrada in his debut match. I don't remember if he broke his neck or just knocked him. I think he might have hurt his neck. He didn't mean to. And, injuring a Hispanic talent or whatever, that never goes bad. Just ignore the Rey Mysterio Paraguayo Jr. footage. Oh, man. You got roped into that like David Carradine. Now I've guaranteed that people aren't going to be happy about that. But we then go to current time with like a workout area, ring, and all this memorabilia, all this poster, all this art footage, or this art stuff that fans had sent him. Really, really good shit. That was cool. And then we see, him and Christian teaming up because they talk about the Brood very briefly. And I wish they'd spent a little more time on the Brood because while they weren't together way too long, they did muck them up initially after the bloodbaths and whatever. They mucked it up by putting them in the ministry and then the corporate ministry and then taking them out of the ministry. And then they were starting to finally get some matches. Gangrel kind of was in the background. Then they got away from Gangrel. Gangrel got the Hardys as part of the new Brood, and then the Hardys had Terry, and then there was a Terry Invitational Tournament. Yes, do you get it? Do you get it? And then we jump around on the footage because then they talk about the 5-second poses and all that. Gangrel even mentioned that he knew that Creative was going to, or the company was going to strap the rocket to Edge, and you could see why. Edge is a good-looking guy that definitely had the drive, and it's nothing against Christian. Edge had the look of a fucking superstar. And then 5-second poses, ladder matches, and then we go back to No Mercy 99, the ladder match to put them on the map and everything. Wonder why the Hardys can't walk all that good now. Wonder why Edge had to retire for 9 years, and wonder why Christian has difficulty walking. Probably because of all these ladder matches. And Foley even congratulated him. The crowd went really, really nuclear that night, but especially on the next night. They gave him a standing ovation, and that was cool shit, and they could barely move. And I remember that vividly. I was 18 years old watching that shit. And we kept having to top ourselves. Mania 2000, the big title win. Excuse me. Allergies are a bitch. But big title win, that was really fucking cool. And then they started getting more media appearances. Remember Total Request Live? Back when MTV actually meant something? Various media appearances, all that stuff. Talking about them as a team, they really compressed a lot of the Edge and Christian moments. There were a lot of ones. I wish they would have included the one with Foley, where they said it's totally going to be the shortest reign ever for the Hardys, shortest reign, and then Foley gets out a goddamn little parasol from a drink, says I guess I better carry one of these. And because I fucking hate, myself for laughing, but I fucking love bad puns because I love making bad puns. It's a give and take, a love and hate thing. I was dying laughing the first time, and I'm dying laughing on the inside now. But Taker says that Edge, was was destined to be a single star. Now, Taker chimed in here. They really show much of Taker and Edge's matches, which I don't get because they had some really good matches. And then him and Christian split up. They're in the ill-fated invasion angle. They skipped over the ladder match that they had at No Mercy 2001, which is pretty good. Showed a little bit of footage of his feud with Regal, a series matches they had. They skipped over the thing with Booker T at Mania 18. They are fighting over shampoo. And then they totally skipped over the hair versus hair match. I know that it's only a 2-hour show, but they could have shown some clips. Hair versus hair match, Judgment Day 2002. He shaves Kurt's head. And then he has like an injury, shoulder type injury or something like that. He's out for a few weeks, comes back, teams up with Hulk Hogan July 4, 2002, wins the tag titles from Billy and Chuck. And then they won it for like 3 weeks. I think lost him at Vengeance 2002. And then he had the series matches with Eddie. And he said during that he was starting to feel some issues. He was starting to feel muscle deterioration. His, I think he said his deltoid or something like that, just was getting to where it was like going away. Like muscles were just atrophying. It was not good. And he had a short run with Ray as a tag team champion. And then right after the Rumble 2003, he was out. He was taken out backstage, at No Mercy, No Way Out 2003. No Mercy 2003 wasn't until October, and Edge was on the shelf by then. But yeah, they had Benoit check on him or whatever, and Benoit was trying to check on him, not the same way that he checked on Nancy and Daniel. Yes, I had to get one of those shots in, I couldn't help it. But Edge had to be out for neck surgery. Double fusion. Wasn't sure when he would come back. He didn't come back for about 13 months. So just over a year. He had to change his work ethic, Well, his work ethic never changed, but the way he worked. Because he knew he was on borrowed time. And come back right after Mania 20. They totally blow over his feud with Kane. He wins the Intercontinental Championship at Vengeance 2004. Goes into Toronto SummerSlam 2004. Gets booed. Booed out of the fucking building. There's also another moment from that show that they failed to recognize. Orton beating Chris Benoit and becoming the youngest world champion in history. Because Benoit decided to hang out after strangling out his family, they just decided to ignore that. And then Edge turns heel. I wish they would have really shown him fully going heel by stopping Shawn Michaels from beating Triple H at Cyber Sunday. Because that was Taboo Tuesday. Cyber Sunday came out in 2006. That was cool. Shawn had the knee injury, but Edge came out full on dickish heel. He was upset that he didn't get a chance to be the champion. He wanted an opportunity to be the champion. And then they skip over the match. What was it? Was it Royal Rumble 2005, where him and Shawn had an incredible fucking match. Great match to open the goddamn show. And then, Money in the Bank win at Mania 21. First ever Money in the Bank winner. Okay. And then they skipped all over 2005. Remember what happened in 2005? The whole thing with Matt Hardy and Lita and Edge. And look, Edge, I believe, was married to Val Venus' sister. By the way, fuck Val Venus. He's a goddamn piece of shit and conspiracy theorist. But nevertheless, if we had to get to wrestlers cheating on their significant others, we'd be here all goddamn day, and we'd have no wrestlers basically left outside of maybe, 5. Because 3 ain't enough. We need 5. Please. No, but anyway, the Edge, Matt Hardy, Lita stuff, that got glossed over, and I wish it didn't. I'm not trying to paint Lita in a bad light. I'm not trying to paint Matt in a bad light. I'm not trying to paint Edge into a bad light. That made Edge super hated for the right and wrong reasons. They used it as fuel because it gave him fire, that which they desire, and woo, yeah, terrible Metallica impression. That is something that they absolutely should have mentioned, which, yes, okay, maybe Edge didn't want to talk about it. Maybe the company didn't want to talk about it. They turned a personal feud, a real-life feud, into TV. And Matt really never got his comeuppance over Edge. Well, I mean, he did hit that leg drop, that insane leg drop off the steel cage top on Edge at Unforgiven 2005. I can't imagine why Matt has difficulty walking after doing spots like that. But they really should have mentioned that, because I think that I don't think that that fans now that weren't watching at that time understand just how... And Edge was already hated by that point. He was determined to be hated. That made it worse. Real life situation, personal issues draw money. Imagine that. And then they cash in at New Year's Revolution 2006. I really wish that they would have talked more about, the Matt Hardy stuff, because by the time we get to the cash in, big deal, he cashes in on Cena. That was cool. Held it for 3 weeks, lost it at the Royal Rumble 2006. He was pissed off because he wanted to be involved in the title picture. He used it as motivation because people felt that he wasn't ready. I imagine Triple H was probably one of the people, because Triple H is pretty protective of his spot and is known to kind of have some politicking. So they show footage of him being associated with Lita. Well, not explain it. Then the Mania 22 match with Foley, which, yes, they broke out the tacks, which I hate using thumbtacks, but if you're going to use them on the biggest stage. That made sense. Barbed wire, flaming table. And Edge even said, as after he speared him through a table, "Oh my God," Joey says, and he covers him. Mick, he covers Mick. He's like, "I love you, Mick." Yeah, who else would say that? He said it back, but it's like, it's like we're all covered in blood, singed hair. And then, the Radar Superstar, the Ultimate Opportunist, they really skip over, like, they don't mention his fucking feud with Cena at all. I mean, they show clips of it. That is something that was a huge missed opportunity. And, I mean, I'm glad they showed the early stuff, and they showed stuff about the family, and that's cool. And, again, 2-hour show, but god damn it. The feud with Cena is what put him on the fucking map, especially. Yes, that match with Foley showed how tough he is. Same way Foley really showed how tough Orton could be at Backlash 2004, just 2 years prior. I just wish they would have focused on the Cena feud, even though we could only see one of the participants, wapa-bapa, wapa-doo. But SummerSlam 2006. Beat Cena in his hometown. Beat Cena in his hometown. Easy for me to say. Well, Boston, Massachusetts, but nevertheless. And then the TLC match at Unforgiven 2006 in Edge's, hometown, Toronto, so to speak. And then Cena wins that back and begins his record-setting run. Well, Edge teams up with Orton as part of Rated RKO. That lasts for a while. They skip over 23, Mania 23, because he was in that messy Money in the Bank multi-man ladder match, which I really still think should be part of the Mania package, because honestly, the Money in the Bank pay-per-view is kind of pointless, my opinion. But they skip over Mania 24 when he faced Undertaker in the main event. Mania 25, okay, him and Big Show and Cena, it is what it is. Him versus Jericho. After he'd come back, as he tore his Achilles, came back at the Royal Rumble 2010, and knew he was on borrowed time by that point. They skipped over that. He was world champion for a bit. I think won at TLC 2010, if I recall correctly. And then, and I wonder, I wish they would have mentioned, maybe about SummerSlam 2010. Oh yeah, by the way, we tried to convince Cena that beating the Nexus was a stupid idea. And fucking listen. But the pain was starting to pile up by this point. He had it was SmackDown a couple weeks before Mania 27. He took a chair shot from Bros Clay, which was safe, but it's the way it was hit. He just couldn't move. And he basically lied and got through this stuff. And got through Mania 27, beat Del Rio. But, of course, you already knew that. Did a spear during a dark match. And, I think it was the Raw after, or I think it was the Raw after that. And then that was it. Vince called him, said, "That's it, you're done. You're done, pal, sorry." And that was it. Edge came out, very heartfelt, retired, big deal, big, huge amount of emotion. I remember vividly. It's hard to believe, I could say I was only 30, but 41 now. But he basically got to be himself and speak from the heart and everything. And then he disconnected himself from wrestling. Beth and him ended up forming a romance. I think it was the Ultimate. I think it was Edge's Edge's last appearance on his contract. They were in Toronto, I think, for SmackDown. His mother was out there. That was something that was touched on here in a little bit. And then, him and Beth, They got kids. Beth even said, "You become the dad that you always deserve to have," which that might hit you for anybody that has not had a father figure in their life. And if you haven't, I feel bad. I feel very bad for you. And glad that you're all still here, and just know that there are people out there that care about you. And it was great to hear that from Beth, and you could tell that meant a lot to her. And then his TV appearances, his movie appearances, stuff like that. Haven, Vikings, other TV. But then his mother got cancer, and he's traveling between home, shooting. This is during the time when he got the Vikings deal, not the Minnesota Vikings, but working on the show Vikings, which is weird. It wasn't like necessarily the best show, but it was cool to see Edge there. His mom got cancer, and it reminded me of how and this is not comparable at all, but it reminded me of at 9 years old losing my grandma. That, to give you clarity, this is the house I grew up in, and my grandparents lived 5.5 miles from me. They've long since passed. My grandpa was born in 1909. Dear God, he'd be 113 by this point if he was still alive. But they were married a number of years. 60, I want to say. Something like that. No, 50. My grandma died in 1990. And it was cancer, I will say that. That's all I'm really going to say. But it was terrible to see it as a kid and not understanding somebody that, you were around not suddenly being there. It's different for Edge because even though he has family members, peripheral, grandma, grandpa, that kind of stuff, his mother meant a lot to him. And that was really jarring. He went into a deep depression, as anybody would, losing somebody that close to you that wanted to see you succeed. Never complained one goddamn bit. Knew that you were going to succeed. And Edge, in turn, you could tell, took care of her. Made sure that after she scraped together and saved and did everything she could, that she was going to see a success he had and benefit from it. You could tell that he did that. I mean, just the reverence that he spoke in regards to his mother, and that she felt she could finally rest, and God, you just wanted to walk into traffic after hearing something that depressing, but understandable, like, because Beth was there. Beth was the rock that he needed. And it's not like the mother didn't feel she was no longer needed. It's just like, some people beat it, some people don't when it comes to cancer. And then depression hit, clearly. Who wouldn't be? His kids and his wife got him through this, and his friends too, I imagine, but especially his kids and his wife. Then talk of one more match, and Beth was dead set against it, but we saw footage of the Celtic Warrior workouts with Sheamus and Edge, and he tumbled on a bike ride in the mountains, in the forest, and through the woods to grandmother's house we go, hey, and he felt great. He was down, but, roll right back up. And then he was training with Edge, or Edge training with Edge, pronouns, pal. No, Edge training with Beth. And doctors gave the okay. He was going to take it easy on the type of bumps he took, but he could do it. Medical science had advanced, and he was going to be all right. Because he had neck surgery in 2012, and there were a lot of serious issues. But then, with the advancements of science and the fact he's taking care of his body, he was able to come back. And then that return, that big, massive pop at Royal Rumble 2020. Huge pop, big deal, massive, fucking great. Then the world stopped for a while because of the very real and unfortunate pandemic. And then he came back they skipped over the Mania 36 match with Orton and the greatest wrestling match ever, or the greatest match ever at wherever the fuck pay-per-view that was. Was it Extreme Rules? Was it that? I don't remember. 2021 Rumble return and win. Mania 37 against Roman Reigns. They cut out Daniel Bryan, now Bryan Danielson from that. Mania 38 against Styles, and now he is, husband, father. He knows that his time is running short, but he will be able to go out on his own terms. And that's what he's happy about. He's working a lighter schedule because, honestly, even though he's getting paid millions, and the man deserves his millions for all that he's gone through, he wasn't going to be able to work a full-time schedule, nor should he. Keep him special. There were people that were saying, oh, he's one of the greatest of all time. Now, I don't know if I'd go that far personally, but am I going to knock the effort that Edge put into his career? No. Is he one of the greatest of modern times? I mean, he worked really goddamn hard. Tag team, multi-time tag team champion, multi-time WWE world champion, all those accolades. Hall of Famer, and had this next part of his career? Hard to argue with success. Hopefully he can retire on his own terms like, before. It's a little sad to see. If he's still wrestling past Mania 40, I will be amazed. I think we could see Mania 39 being the last, but we will see. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Retlin. I'll see you soon.